I want to hear. I want to hear that I'm 100. I want to hear that I'm 100, and he says that. He says that this perceived sense is what is actually sought after, and whether that be in knowledge, whether that be in piety, whether that be in beauty, whether that be in any of the things that are around us, or any abilities that a person has. Like, man, you are the fastest person I've ever seen. Is it possible I'm the fastest human being? I mean, I highly doubt it. Like, but am I fast? Sure. And subhanallah, we find this a lot, and we live in an era where this social capital is actually very easy to gain. Why? Social media, right? So now you have individuals who are platformed, who in a world before social media would never have been platformed. And then what happens? All of a sudden, right, everybody's double tapping. And what happens to the person who's receiving that? With every like, what happens? Right? Like his head gets his, his head gets bigger and bigger. And it doesn't have to be like worldwide fame, even on a very small local level. Many times we as individuals will share things hoping for what? Like hoping for that praise. And then the question, like this very much boils down to a question for us, like why am I doing certain things, or why am I sharing certain things? And a question that I think is very important for every single one of us: why do I need validation? Like why does this action, or why does this statement, or why does this picture, why do I feel the need that it needs to be validated? And then we have to ask ourselves, do I actually believe that? Like, do I actually believe the thing that I'm saying? Because if I believed it, why would I need validation? And if I have a problem with this thing that I believe, what is the easiest way to deal with it? If I'm not sure, somebody gives me an idea, and I'm not sure of this idea, what do I do? Right? Either I can reject it, it's like, okay, no, there are too many holes in this, so I'm going to reject it. Or I can ask. Very easy. It's amazing how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us these very simple tools to deal with our day to day and how to manage our lives, but we still we still do what? We take a third option. If somebody brings me an idea and all of my friends share that idea, what is my go-to? This is where I usually will seek validation. Because I'll take that idea and then I'll put it on social media and I'll share it with a group of people who probably what? Also share and also agree. And everybody's kind of double tapping each other, right? And where did the problem stem from? Because I didn't what? I didn't actually believe it, or I didn't actually trust it. So, so why is that? So, like we said, even if he can't achieve perfection in them, he fears losing what he has. So, there are two parts to this. There are two parts to this. I want to be here, right, which is the upper level, but I also don't want to lose this, right? So I want to be here, but I also don't want to lose this. So this is the space that I want to navigate in, and this is the space that I want to be in. So it's amazing how desire and fear are the two motivating factors in this want to be in this perceived space. And the more validation a person receives, the closer to perfection we are. And we said ultimate kamal, ultimate perfection is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because, well, he doesn't need validation, but on top of that, in actuality, does Allah have a peer? Absolutely not. So when we talk about true perfection, we're talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the reasons for that true perfection is because he has no peer, whether that be in presence, whether that be in ability, whether that be in knowledge, mercy, etc. So when we talk about us, the closer we try to perfection, we seek knowledge, and we would like that we are the most knowledgeable in that. Like, we want to be the highest specialist. We want to be the fastest person, right? Why? Because we don't want anyone with us. We want to be unique. We want to be different. We want to be the one that started that trend. We wanted to be the one that speaks in that way, right? Like we want to be the ones who pioneered. So, and the more we hear it, the further we entrench ourselves in this belief. And the more we start to seek it. And may Allah protect us. So he uses the example of a teacher and a student. And he says that when a teacher praises a student, like, you're so intelligent, or you're so smart, or you're so understanding, like you understand very quickly, he says that this is especially dangerous. Why? Mm. So here, let me maybe put the question another way. If a student says to another student, "Man, you're really smart," and a teacher says to a student, you're very smart," what is the difference in effect? Yeah, yeah, from the teacher. It's the teacher. It's going to have more value, right? It's going to have more value. And basically, what Ghazali has done here and set up here is talking about a praise when there is a power dynamic. So any type you have a power dynamic, and the one is of a higher station praises someone who is of a lower station, what happens? Here, so let me put it this way. If I believed I was here and another student praises me, I might move like this, right? And if I was here and a teacher praises me, how am I going to move? A lot, right? Like, it's going to be a bigger jump. And not just that, what happens to the relationship between the student and the teacher? Huh? It can be better, right? It can be better, but here, how does the student view the teacher now? Right, of higher value. Right now, he values it more because, number one, the teacher is already valuable, right? He's more valuable than the other students, and now that he's receiving it, the praise also has more value. And it's important to keep these power dynamics in mind, even in the relationships that we have with each other. That when we praise someone or when we critique someone, we have to keep the nature of the relationship in mind. Why? Huh? So, like, so we can distill the effect a little bit. And because the thing is, right, if this is with praise, what happens with critique? The opposite. Right? So if a fellow student says, like, "Oh man, your handwriting is trash," and then the teacher says your handwriting is trash, what happens? Right? It has that bigger effect. So it's very important for us to keep in mind in all of our relationships the effect that critique and praise will have on others, and make sure that we're presenting it in a way that will motivate them accordingly and discourage them accordingly. So he says, and the same thing with dispraise, right? So when it comes to critique and dispraise, the same applies, right? So that same logic we were talking about when you praise someone or you raise someone, the same logic will also apply when you disparage or when you critique someone. So we said that it cuts much deeper, and this is something that I think is universally understood. So he said the heart that sways here, and the one that praises him, he continues to seek that from that person because, again, it gives him what he feels or perceives to be control over the person that's praising him. And in order to maintain that, he's going to continuously seek validation. And at the same time, him seeking praise, he's running away and avoiding being critiqued. This idea, again, of seeking and this idea of fear are the things that are going to motivate him in this. And this effect on others is very similar, right? It's a very similar concept and a very similar idea. Like, just like he wants to have control over this person's heart, he wants to have the control over the hearts of others as well. So here, when somebody is praised, there can be a love of the control of the people around him, and there can be love of the praise in and of itself, right? That praise is the thing that will kind of stick to his heart, and it feels that these terms give him a higher station and give him a higher standing. So how does he control it? And what is the cure for this? he says that many times that you can enjoy all of these four things, right? So these four things that we had mentioned, four things we had talked about. He says sometimes they can all come together. Sometimes they're individual, sometimes that they can come together, and sometimes they can diverge. And the less of these you have, the less powerful that praise or that discouragement is. So he said there are different treatments for this. He says, as far as seeking perfection is concerned, it is sought through praise. And the very simple cure for me as an individual, the moment that a person says to me that I'm the smartest person in the world, it's like, you know what, you're the smartest person I've ever met, or you're the smartest person in the world. What should I do, and what should my reaction be, according to what Ghazali is sharing with us and telling us? Huh? He's like, you're lying, bro. Like, no, I am not. I know I'm not the, I know I'm not the smartest person in the world. I know that for 100%. So immediately, the value of his praise, what happens to it? It disappears, right? Not just goes down, it disappears. It's like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, I know myself. So self-awareness is the first step. This idea of self-awareness and self-worth and understanding who I am, right? Should I diminish myself? If someone says like, no, mashallah, man, you're really intelligent, and be like, no, I'm actually stupid. Right? Is that how it should be? No, right? Like I should also recognize and value myself as an individual, as a person. That's something that's really important. But I need to know where I stand, and I need to know what my actual position is. So he says here that if we do that, if we know that it's untrue, it weakens that desire to seek praise from others. Because now I know what he's saying is untrue. So do I care now what he thinks? No, not really. Because the things that he's saying aren't true. So I don't have the same value behind it. And he says that whether this be over him or whether it be over others, remember we talked about 2 and 3. So he's saying that all of this is removed. All of this is removed. But an individual who gets caught up in just praise, he just creates this feedback loop here. Which is why it's so important to understand and have that sense of self-awareness. What about coercion, right? So we talked about this idea of coercing others and having that control. And he said this is a completely separate problem. And it has to do with this love of status in and of itself, right? So sometimes people love status because of the effect it has on others. And sometimes people love status because they just love status. And he said this is something that will be addressed, inshallah, in the next chapter. And we'll talk about that next week. And he says, and he closes the section saying that, okay, well, why did I talk about this? Why did I discuss this? He's saying, if you don't understand the problem, there's no way that you'll understand the cure. So this is why I spent so much time discussing these things. And this is why I spent so much time on this. Now I want to go back to the first question I spoke about. And let me frame it in a different way. Who is the audience that Imam Ghazali was addressing in this whole discussion? Right, he's addressing scholars. Who is he not addressing? Right, students, maybe regular worshippers, and especially children. So if we actually go back through those slides and we go through some of those discussions, what should I be doing with children? Should I be like, should I be honest with them? No, I should be what? Right, I should do so all of the things that he's saying don't do here, what should I be? I should do the opposite of it. Why? Well, not just that. Motivation, confidence, I agree 100% with all those things. But not just that. If I, as an adult, am here, what does that mean? That I'm probably close to my potential, yes? Right? As an adult, how far are we from our potentials? We're not that far. It's not like, this huge. It's not going to be, if I can run like a 10-minute mile, there's no way I'm going to be running a 4-minute mile, right? Like, it's not. Can I get to like 8-9 minutes? Maybe, right? That's probably more realistic. And it's the same thing with knowledge or whatever. If I'm on that trajectory, I'm on that pace, maybe. What in children? What's the difference? Right? Their whole life is in front of them. They're not even close to what their potential is or can be. And that's why there's no reason for us to worry about the end line, because they're still at the starting line. So all the things that we spoke about, This doesn't, the actual opposite applies to children because they're not at their potential point yet. And we have to make sure we're in spaces where we're motivating them, because even if the power dynamic is there. Remember we talked about like I don't want to be repetitive, but the power of the power dynamic. Remember we said that when a teacher praises a student, what effect does it have? Double, triple, quadruple, right? Okay, what about a father and his son? Or a mother and their daughter? And if we understand that that power dynamic exists, well, guess what? The opposite also holds true, yes? So the moment a father or mother is hypercritical of their children, what happens to their potential and self-esteem? It just slowly drops. And we now become the limiting factor to them. Instead of helping them, we've actually hurt them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that. But I thought this was a good discussion, and I thought it was really interesting on how he framed it and how he talks about certain things. But in like me coming to the end and be like, well, wow, I need to make sure that we actually address this, and who is it that he's talking to? Because if we look at the opposite end of the spectrum, how much more how we can use these tools to make our children that much more powerful, and to make them that much more empowered. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us successful children and parents. I mean, any questions on this? Just wanted to close with this discussion. I know it was a short discussion today. No. I'll see you guys next week, inshallah. والله أعلم وصلى الله على خير خلق نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. جزاكم الله خير.